you want to feel happy when you come in here because it is just warm and lovely, and you get to look at beautiful art. You get to maybe think about, somebody might be there to prompt some questions for you to think about that art. But you may just want a contemplative, quiet experience as well. You might want a loud experience, but you might want a quiet experience. And the nice thing is, there's flexibility within that environment in a museum.
In this episode, we dive into my fascinating conversation with Ninette Gyorody, the Executive Director of the Orillia Museum of Art and History. Celebrating its 25th anniversary, OMAH has been transformed over the years into a vibrant community hub that blends art, history, and education. We explore Ninette's journey since joining OMAH in 2013, the museum's evolution, and the behind the scenes of how a museum collects items for their exhibitions. We also discuss the significance of history and art in shaping community identity, the exciting plans for OMAH's future, and how you can get involved. So whether you're a longtime supporter or new to Orillia's museum, there's something for everyone in this insightful episode. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Ninette. Ninette, welcome to the podcast. I'm glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Jiun. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. So I'd like to kind of start by just you telling me a little bit about who you are and what you do in OMAH, I guess.
How far do you want me to go back on this, Jiun? I'm just kidding. So I've been at, we won't start from my birth, but we'll start from when I arrived at OMAH. Maybe that's my second birth. So I arrived at OMAH in 2013. So I was hired on as the executive director at that time. So I've been here ever since. So when I was hired on, the museum was going through a transition they had just gone through a major renovation, and they have activated all 4 floors of the museum. And they were looking to go into more of a direction that was more a front-facing, like more, community-oriented, more of a programming space than what might have been thought of as a traditional static museum space. So I guess I was the right candidate at the time, and they felt I was a good fit. And so we've been programming here ever since, and all 4 floors are, we're essentially at capacity what we're doing. So I think that we've done a really great job in terms of reaching out to our community members through programming, through summer camps, school programs, events, exhibitions, and, even as much as putting our entire collection online. So there's no, and the one thing that we do, and I'm really proud of that we do, is that all our exhibitions are, we curate around 16 exhibitions a year. So there is one currently a static, a permanent display, but again, we may shift that at some point, but, there's always something new to see at the museum.
That's great. So for, I guess, those of you that aren't entirely sure, when we talk about OMAH, it's called Orillia Museum of Arts and History. I always joke the acronym, it sounds like, a German grandmother when I first started. So so sometimes we know that as like OMAH, but yes, the full name is Orillia Museum of Art and History. And it's been around for 25 years. It always amazes me, but it doesn't necessarily surprise me that people have not heard of it, even longtime residents. So it's always our mission to get the word out about the museum and show people what a great place it is and how valuable it is to our community. Yeah. So what do you think, and I guess tell me a little bit more about the value that you think OMAH brings to the community?
Well, I think one thing is just, the one thing is, there's 2 parts to OMAH, the Orillia Museum of Art and History. So we'll talk about it in 2 parts, these 2 pillars. In terms of history, it primarily focuses on what we'll call a settler history. So from the establishment of the town of Orillia in 1867 into the present. There is an Indigenous history component, but that is something that we're still working on with our partners in RAMA to enhance and develop. We also engage with the history of the townships around us, Severin, Ramera, and Oro-Medonte. But our main focus tends to be the city of Orillia. And the one thing that I always say, while we're looking at the past history, every day we're making history. So we're now looking at the present, like today will be the past. So I'm always fascinated by, especially people who are coming to the community that are new, that their history isn't rooted here. I'm come from away. So my history isn't from here, but I'm making history every day. So everybody is making a contribution to our community's history, whether it was from 150 years ago and whether it's today or yesterday. So that's the history component. And so we have a real challenge ahead of us. The challenge that we're up to is engaging with people who have come to the community today to show them that their history is also here, right? Like, may not be always on display, but it is here and it will be here at some point. In terms of the art, our mandate is much broader in terms of exhibition. We can focus on contributions of local artists, regional artists, and artists from across the nation. So our art shows sometimes they're local-based artists, and sometimes we feature artists from across the country. So there's some flexibility in what we do with the art.
Right. And you mentioned earlier that the exhibitions are always kind of rotating and moving.
Yeah. So again, about on average 16 a year. So the history exhibitions do take a little bit longer to develop because you're doing a lot more research and again, a lot more writing, where the art tends to speak for itself. There's a little bit less writing. But each of the exhibitions tend to have little interactives, and we're starting to bring in iPads for doing a little scavenger hunt for kids or even adults. Who doesn't like a scavenger hunt? So those are, I wouldn't say easier to develop, but they take a little less time than the history exhibitions.
Right. And how do you choose what exhibitions, because I'm just curious now, right? How do you choose which exhibitions to kind of showcase? Because you said you work with other townships, but you primarily focus on Orillia. I'm assuming that the museums, you work with other museums in the area. I don't actually know. Like how?
Oh yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. So we have worked in the past with Stephen Leacock Museum, which is the City of Orillia Museum. I should say, just for people, so sometimes because we are in a city-owned building in downtown Orillia, maybe that would help with location. But we are a not-for-profit charitable institution. So we are arm's length of the City of Orillia. We do get an operating grant from them, but we don't, we're not a part of the city, one of the city departments. So Stephen Leacock Museum is a city-run museum, and we have partnered with them. We've partnered with Orillia Opera House. So one of the things too about our community engagement is that we really like to partner with either businesses or other arts institutions around, or arts organizations around. So that's something that has always been part of my belief in that we want to execute, and we've continued to execute that. So in terms of working with other museums and galleries in the area, sometimes it could be like McLaren Art. So it just really depends on what the exhibition might be or the program plan might be. So if we can work with a partner, why not, right? Strength in numbers, different audiences to tap into. So, and there's no secrets here. Like, why don't we work together is kind of the mantra here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're here today, I guess, basically to talk about the fact that OMAH is 25 years old.
Yeah.
So what do you guys have planned for 25 years and what's happening?
Sure. So the official birthday was August 9th. So we did get a big birthday cake donated to us from Mariposa Market. Again, another one of our business partners. We were running a camp here in the summer. So all the kids they made birthday cards for the museum, and we had a big, we sang happy birthday, and we had a cake. But we are going to wrap up our celebrations this month. So we are having a party with some of our stakeholders. And at that party, so a couple of things that are sort of available to the broader community. We've had 25 local artists create 25 original works of art called timepieces. So it's based on the clock tower, which is the iconic feature of the building that we're in. And they've rendered it in their own style. So we are auctioning, those are going to be silent auctioned off as a fundraiser for the museum. So we're really grateful for these 25 artists that have contributed their work. We are also publishing a new book. So this is going to be our 13th or 14th publication by the museum. It's called Orillia Then and Now. So we took 25, see, there's a theme here, 25, you're getting that, 25 photos from the collection of Orillia, like of either postcards or photographs of different streets, different buildings in Orillia. And we commissioned photographer Samantha Vesios to take the photographs in the same position today. So it's interesting to see, so again, how the city looked, or city or town, whichever at the time looked, and then how it looks today, and so the evolution of this city. So, and each piece, each duo of photographs has a little write-up by either one of our history committee members, historians, and staff that have contributed to it. So it's a real community publication, and that will be launched on September 20th. So that's another piece. And we are launching an acquisition fund. So one of the things that we've, again, as a not-for-profit, you're always struggling to find dollars, right? It's just part of the nature of being, in an environment where it is challenging, when there are other greater needs. I acknowledge that there are greater needs in our community than arts and culture. I'm aware of that. While I think it's important for our community's health and well-being, it is not the primary important feature. I will say that. But one of the things that we want to do, again, as we continue to grow and continue to look into the future, is what if something comes available to us that we just would love to have for the collection? And when we say the collection is for the community. So, if something comes up for sale, we don't have the funds currently to buy anything. We'd have to fundraise. So we want to have set aside a little bit in our bank account. So if something comes up, then we can purchase. So in 2020, back in those days, Franklin Carmichael painting came available to us. It was on auction through Canadian Fine Arts. And at the time, so I should say, just in case, Franklin Carmichael, one of the members of the group of 7, was born in Orillia. He grew up here and, again, started his art career here essentially with his art lessons and working, painting carriages. His father ran a carriage, building company, and he would paint them. And then he went on to be a graphic designer and a member of the group of 7. So this Franklin Carmichael painting came available to us, or said they certainly was on offer to us, but it was $40,000. Well, we didn't have that $40,000. So a community member, Doug Frost, who currently sits on our board of directors, said, I'll put up $20,000 if you can raise another $20,000. And we did it. We did it, and we're able to purchase that painting. It is now part of our collection, a beautiful watercolor. It's typically on display about once a year, but it's a real source of pride for us. So what if another Franklin Carmichael painting comes up and we just are unable to purchase it? So we decided we would now really focus on, and again, as we're looking back at our past 25 years, we're looking forward to the next 25. So this is part of the future. So we want to build this acquisition legacy fund, or whatever we're going to call it. And right now we have $25,000 pledged sitting in that fund, and we're hoping that we can match it with another $25,000. So we're looking for birthday presents, I guess, part of that to help the fund. And so that when something comes up, we have an opportunity to, consider purchasing. So those are some big things, right? So again, part of what we're doing now is really looking to the future. Again, we're acknowledging the past, the good and the bad, but we're looking strongly to the future and what we can do.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking, or I was wondering when it came to, the history and the art that you guys decide every year, like that we're going to be putting on, and deciding on, and how that whole thing worked is you're looking, because as most people know, when you are going to a museum, you're usually looking at things that have happened in the past. right? Or that have. So what is it, or that, somebody else painted before, right? So what is it that OMAH wants to do going forward? Like, are you looking to have more permanent exhibitions of, as you start acquiring and purchasing, different paintings or different, what's the goal?
Well, if I look at my big goal, I would say, and this was a tough one, I haven't quite fully formulated this one, but we are at capacity in our building. We can't, we're running out of room, right? To do more, like, we're so full with our programs. I have to say, I would love to have more space. I don't know if that's a new building. That would be maybe my ultimate wish. A satellite building would be great. A brand new building would be great. We are at capacity in this building that we're in Sir Sam Steele Memorial Building. We can't build on top of it. So, but what do we do? So and I always say, if somebody asks me why is this not sort of good enough or, enough for you? I always say, the one thing for sure is it's a historical building and it has limitations. It is a designated building, which means you can't alter the facade of any way. So if we wanted to put in a large doorway that you could drive a car through, let's say, and I'm going to use that as an example because there were cars built in Orillia. The Tudhope car was one of the first cars built in Canada, was built in Orillia. We can't take a car. We can't accept that donation because we can't fit it in through our, traditional doorway entries. We don't have a freight elevator that we could bring something really large up to our second floor. So we can't collect things that are larger than, say, a doorway. And there's certain things in our community that have made significant impact in our community that are probably larger than a doorway. So we're limited by what we can collect. And as a community museum, I can't get my head around that. I would love to have more space that's larger, showcase space of some sort. So how that would look in terms of then, could you do a permanent exhibition on Orillia and area, and then have rotating exhibitions around that? I mean, the programming plans would follow whatever type of physical space we would have. Again, also with COVID, we've blown out into the digital space, right? We have a burgeoning YouTube channel. Our social media is growing. All our programs have been we've made videos of all of our programs. So if somebody couldn't attend a program in person, they could have it virtually. So sure, we're out there in a larger way. It's just the physical space is what we're hoping to grow. At least I am. That's my hope.
Yeah. And I don't know that much about museums, but I guess the goal of every museum is, for the most part, not only to showcase art and history and stuff like that, but to collect, right? So that's part of the struggle that you guys have, or right now, is because you're at capacity, that collection portion is stunted, I guess, in that sense. Like, there's very limited in what you can. Exactly.
But our collection is growing again in small pieces. So we have over 23,000 objects in our collection. And that's like, from every piece of paper is counted as an object. So that gives you some sense. So, the art collection is probably 500 to 1,000 pieces, and the rest would be what we'd call stuff or objects. But you're right. Now we have to be very selective. Or we have to do what's called deaccessioning. That's a traditional museum process where you start to evaluate whether let's say you have two of the same thing, you don't have space. So which of the two are you going to keep? If there's a duplication, or if one has a story, the other doesn't, meaning it doesn't have provenance. So you don't know, again, but that this piece was handled by one of the merchants in town 50, 60 years ago. So then you would but then there's a very lengthy process on how you properly deaccession something, because somebody is giving you that item in trust. Essentially, if there's the paperwork to follow, you have to follow a due process, which is clearly outlined in one of our collections policy. But you're right. Every museum's goal is to collect. I mean, that is what a museum does. And this is the struggle of every museum, large and small, is that, they cannot show everything possible. And really maybe less than 10% of every museum's collection is ever on display at one time. So that's always been a question I've noticed over the years too is, I donated something 6-8 years ago. It was my grandmother's. I haven't seen it. So again, that's why we put our collection online. So at least that's one way to say, well, you can see it that way. And then another thing, again, because we're more savvy about creating video content, we're now doing a video of our collections, not item by item, but just at least an overview so people can kind of see what the behind the scenes looks like, because that isn't accessible to the public.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. And what is it like when you're trying to collect items? Because I don't know enough about it, right? Do people donate them usually? It goes through, it sounds like you can actually purchase them through auction. How does the process work when you say like, I have something that would be great to have in a museum, right? How does it go or end up in a museum?
So typically, we'd say depending if let's say, here we have the blessing of an art programming coordinator, history programming coordinator. So let's say you're going to donate you're considering you're donating a work of art to the collection. So you would reach out. So in a perfect world, you would reach out and make an appointment with the arts programming coordinator and or send in at least some visuals of the work that you're considering donating. Ideally, if you have story with it, it's not, this was in my grandmother's house. It's 3 generations. It was purchased at auction. Like the more detail you can give us, the better, because that forms part of that story in a collection record. And typically, there's, then it would sort of go through me as a final approval. But if it comes on recommendation that we take it into the collection, I sign off on it. And then when it comes in, let's say then it physically arrives to the museum, there's some paperwork that's signed. We call it a deed of gift, which means that you're basically signing it over. You're acknowledging that it's in the museum's possession. The museum is holding it in trust. And if, let's say if it was ever in the unfortunate situation that the museum had to dissolve, let's say for the organization to cease to exist, that they're aware that they're not getting that object back, right? So unless there's something written into an agreement, the item is ours to do with as we wish, essentially. But of course, as we wish is to put it on display. So yeah, that's we try to collect as much information as possible. And certainly every item that can come in is of significant value, is certainly can receive a tax receipt to that donor.
Wow, that's interesting. And for those people that have never stepped foot in a museum before, I'd like to ask what you think is the value of museum, or the value of going and exploring the history of a town or, a place in general. Okay. So if you're a visit, so we can look at it 2 ways. We'll say if you're coming into town, you don't know anything about Orillia and you want to know a little bit of something. You're here for a couple of days. So, for me, like when I go traveling, it's a step foot into the museum, just give you a sense of the community, where it's come from. It's not the only thing I do when I go visit. I love to walk around. So I'd say that it's a stopping point on a trip. It's not the be all end all, because it only tells one aspect of a story, and essentially maybe 2 perspectives of a story, but not all the perspectives, let's say. So it's not to come in and say, this is it, this is the history, and this is the only way it was, because it will always essentially be incomplete, right? Because not all voices will be expressed. So I'd say that as a visitor. So as a community member, at some point, don't you want to know where you're living? I think it's just kind of neat, like how it was built up, maybe, what street you're living on, just how the community evolved. There's got to be some value to that to fulfill your experience within the community. In terms of coming into a space, the other thing is it's a welcoming space. You want to feel happy when you come in here, because it is just warm and lovely, and you get to look at beautiful art. You get to maybe think about, somebody might be there to prompt some questions for you to think about that art.
But you may just want a contemplative, quiet experience as well. You might want a loud experience, but you might want a quiet experience. And the nice thing is, there's flexibility within that environment in a museum to have those experiences.
Yeah. I think I like museums for that nature. I like that quiet experience where I go in and I'm looking at something, and it's usually I go in because, I know this exhibition, or I know someone from this exhibition, or I know certain pieces of this exhibition. So I go and I look at them, and then I get to almost fill in the blanks, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? Like where I have my own perception, or I have my own idea of how the story goes or how it went. Or like this was really cool. But now seeing more pieces of it informs me and gives me that, I can just see a better rounding knowledge, I guess. It just rounds out my knowledge of whatever thing I'm interested in.
Absolutely. And, and again, some places you go to, and there's, even if you want to learn even more, there's a QR code. I mean, everything can just be on your phone, right? Like you can take as much or as little as you want from a museum experience, I'd say. I mean, you can just, and you know what? Some people just, like they do, they're the grazers. They just run around and that's enough for them. And then there's the ones that read everything in detail. And you know what? There's value for everybody in a space, right? They can choose their experience.
Yeah. So going back a little bit before, we stray too far from it, but going back to the 25th anniversary thing, we've mentioned a few of the things that you have been doing that people actually have access to. Is there any other events or anything else that people can go check out, or people can go be part of for the 25th anniversary?
For the 25th? I'm just trying to think. So I think really it's those few things. Again, the big party that we're hosting is for those who have past board members. It's really like a look back at the past. And we're so thankful for our sponsors, Park Lane Landscapes, amazing business in town that we've been working with for 4 or 5 years on programming, are a big part of it. And the location that we're at is called Moose Factory of Orillia. It's the home of Charles Pachter and Keith Lamb and their artists. And they've designed the gardens there. So it's just going to be a real showcase evening. And, the great thing about MOFO, or Moose Factory of Orillia, the acronym there is MOFO. People can go visit anytime. You can call Charles and Charles and Keith, and they would welcome you into their galleries. So, again, and there's that community spirit here in Orillia, and we're always so appreciative of Charles and Keith opening up their space to us. So, again, I think we're going to really showcase the event. And the one thing actually we're funny, because we're always thinking of art and history. So a couple of the little extra things that we're doing, and it's all going to be video documented too. We're bringing highlights from the collection, 5 pieces. I work with the Museum and Gallery Studies students at Georgian College, and they're going to come and be the docents and the sort of the guards of these 5 items that they get to talk about and learn about that are part of our collection. So they get some hands-on experience. And we have those Instamax cameras that look like the old Polaroid. So guests can take a photo and then hopefully write a little birthday message into our photo album that we're creating that will go into the collection after. So we're always trying to come up with sort of nifty little ideas, because how else would you document this intangible experience and save it for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I'm excited to see everything that you guys have been doing for the 25th anniversary. And you guys do a lot more, like the museum itself. Like you said, you guys do online. There's projects that you're always kind of on the go. You guys also do camps for kids. What other projects do you have that the museum does?
Okay, so we do. So exhibitions are a big part of it. We have, we recently were commissioned by the Digital Museums of Canada to do an online exhibition. So that is one online exhibition. You can access it through our website or the Digital Museums Canada website, called Everyone Has a Story. It features almost 18 Orillians talking about their experiences in Orillia, of all ages and walks of life. So that's available online. In terms of, so again, the programs, we have camps, we have 12 school programs, 10 school programs. We've just developed 2 new school programs. So schools can come into the museum. We can go out to see them. Again, all available also online. We have the collection. We're always doing research opportunities. We are doing partnering with organizations like we work with Park Lane Landscapes. We work with Mariposa House Hospice. And again, it can be in varying capacities. And, we have a gift shop. And we also rent our space. So if you wanted to have an event here, we can host the event for you. And also in our lobby, I should say, we have a small space that we do, so again, like Chamber of Commerce has Small Business Week is coming up, Ontario Canadian Small Business Week. So, they said, can you do something in the lobby, some kind of display? And I think they specifically asked that the first chamber president was this R.R. Slavin. Do we have anything on R.R. Slavin that we could maybe showcase for chamber members for that week? And we said, he ran a pharmacy in town. So of course we have little pharmaceutical bits and pieces and signage, and we'll put together displays. So sometimes there's just sort of little pop-up things that we work with our community partners.
That's amazing. That's pretty cool. So for people interested in helping or donating or joining OMAH, like how would they do that?
Oh, for sure. So we appreciate any form of support. So volunteering, there are lots of volunteer opportunities. So again, for all ages too. So all ages being sort of for high school and up. So students can collect their high school hours here. So they did things like, renaming files in computers, taking photos, they working with our school programs or birthday party. We do birthday parties too, that's another thing that we do. We do lots of things. And we also have a membership. And the membership program, again, if you're a senior, $20 a year, really inexpensive. That means that you can just come into the museum anytime. You get our newsletter that we send out twice a week by email. Again, we're pretty big. You can think how much we're doing. And that means, the membership, it just shows a support of the museum. Even if you don't ever come in, it gives us a sense that, there's a token of appreciation from a member in the community. So there's memberships for families. There's what we call the Sir Sam Society membership. It's an upscale membership. It's $365, like again, $1 a day, $65 for the membership. It gets a $300 tax receipt. And typically the $300 portion can go to one or two things. And the one thing that most people have been donating towards is to purchase of a work of art. So each year we purchase a work of art on behalf of the Sir Sam Society members and unveil it once a year. And then there's sometimes extra little pieces that we do in events. And then we have a corporate membership as well. So great for business. The business can then sponsor an exhibition as a portion of their membership. And it's, again, either attracting a different clientele, thank you to their employees. It's we can look at it in various different ways. So I find that we often tailor and customize our offerings to whoever's interested.
Amazing. And is there anything else that you'd like to mention that we haven't talked about, I guess, before we wrap up? Is there anything that we missed?
I just want to make sure that people know, like, they're welcome, and again, while there is an admission, $5, again, or a membership, we are barrier free. If you don't have those means available to you, we will still welcome you in. We will not stop you at the doors. We'll make sure that people know it's a safe space, it's a welcome space, an accessible space, and open to all in our community. Absolutely.
And I guess for people that are interested, because this episode is hopefully going to come out within the next couple of weeks, what are the current exhibitions that are going on for people that would be interested in joining?
We're actually, so it's good that it's coming in a couple of weeks. We're just changing over our exhibitions. So currently, I'm in the exhibition space called the Franklin Carmichael Gallery. Right now it's called Reflections of Our Roots. It's an overview of the history of Orillia, featuring some notable Orillians, and just highlighting some objects from our collection. This space will change over to the exhibition called Orillia Then and Now, which is very complementary to the book. So all the photographs will be on display in large scale, again, not with objects that might match some of the businesses that are on display. So again, it'll be an enhancement of that, the book. In the So we have a juried landscape exhibition, 23rd annual Tradition Transformed. It features work from across Canada, of artists from across Canada, interpreting the landscape. So it's inspired, it's an homage to Franklin Carmichael, but the work that you will see is not sort of that typical traditional landscape. I mean, there's video, there's sculpture, there's painting, there's photography, it's everything. And it's always selected by 2 jurors every year. So it's just, you never know what you're going to get. It's an exciting show. We're featuring a local artist in our small gallery called the Lounge Gallery, Jiun Liao. She was inspired when she moved to town. She was inspired by the book, The Owl Pen, which was created by a local, an artist and writer in Coldwater, just neighboring community. And her work is prints that she's made called The Owl Pen Revisited. So it's inspired by this story, of the owl pen. And that's what's going to be on display.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, and sorry, one more. I knew there's one more. There's an exhibition featuring the work of Jose Salas, who as an art teacher, I immigrated from Spain to Orillia in 1970, was the Park Street Visual Arts Department. So Park Street became part of OSS, so really a secondary school. And he was the teacher there from 1970 and 1994. So, and it also features works from his students that were inspired by Mr. Salas. So there's 10 students' works. So from the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. And hopefully all these students will come together in October at the special reception that we're going to have for them. And they all talk about how Mr. Salas inspired them and why they went on to be artists. So,
oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Love that.
Lots of good things
Great
going
story.
on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So where can people learn more about the Orillia Museum, the social media, website?
Yes, the website, orilliamuseum.org. We have a strong presence on Facebook and Instagram.
And they can, what, do you know the handle? Is it just Orillia Museum?
Orillia Museum, actually, really simple. Orillia Museum.
And you mentioned you also have a YouTube?
We do, yeah. Orillia Museum Art and History, I think, is the YouTube channel. But I think if you just put in Orillia Museum, you'll get our channel.
All right. Amazing. Well, thank you very much, Ninette, for being part of this episode. And I learned a lot about museums and how they kind of work. And yeah, congrats on the 25th anniversary of OMAH.
Thanks so much, Jiun. This was fun. Thank you.